ChatGPT is great for quick answers, but when you need writing expertise, Grammarly is my go-to tool. If you're already juggling emails, docs,
Shake it like you mean it, baby. Come on and dance with it. Come on. Shake it like you mean it, baby. Come on and dance with it.
Hello, friends. Hello. Oh, my bag's all crumply sounding. I'm back. I feel like I missed you guys. I feel like I haven't been here forever. Thank you, Druid. I was holding up my loot bag from Quiltcon. So I'm back. We're looking at quilts today. I don't think I need to say much more. So, I didn't post anything on social media the whole time I was gone. When did I buy the tote? You know, it was in the back of my car the whole time we were there. The night that other Stephanie and I went to check in. I'm sorry, Druid. The night that me and other Stephanie went to check in and get our badges, she bought me a tote as a thank you for driving her. So it sat in the back of my car the whole time. I actually didn't use it. So yeah, you know, guys, it was such a crazy 4 days. Was it 4 days? We had the weather situation. We kind of had to flee Raleigh. Jill just got back. Jill ended up staying there a little bit longer because of Massachusetts weather was so terrible. It went by so fast, you guys. I mean, I know we kept saying on our stream, you know, we'll try to do pop-up if we can. And oh my God, there just wasn't a minute. I'm so sorry, but we have all the intel. We'll be talking about QuiltCon until you're tired of us talking about QuiltCon. But yeah, we met lots of fun people. We didn't even know what day it was. Yeah, a little bit of that too. You might notice that my voice is still terrible. I still have this horrible cough. I'm no different than when I left. And you know, it's like part of it was getting over that cold I had when I was at my father-in-law's house, but also, I mean, I think some of it's allergies and some of it is just, I don't know, you know, conditions that want to stick around, just like our snow. So I am healthy. I feel fine. I just sound terrible. In any event, you know, I spent a lot of time talking to people and looking for people and tracking people down. And then, of course, our volunteer gig, you know, we were volunteering. Jill and I were there. Our friend, other Stephanie, she's a quilt nerd. So some of you probably do know her. And the rest of the American Quilt Study Group gang, we had such a good time. But it went by so fast. And I mean, it was just so, you know, it's just a whirlwind. So I took a crazy bunch of pictures, and the last 2 days I've sorted them so that I can kind of bring them to you in batches. Today we're going to do winners, and I'm going to give you the disclaimer right off the bat, you guys. Again, it was crazy. When I went around to look at the quilts, it was always nuts. There was always a ton of people. And so I did not get all the winners. There was, I think, a couple categories I never even got over to. Luckily, our friend, other Stephanie, gave me some of her pictures. So I have those for us for a different day. But I thought we would look at, I do have like the best in show and that kind of thing to look at. And then the rest of them are really just quilts that caught my eye. And I was like, I got to look at this quilt more. And so, you know, I'm going to take a picture of it. I'm going to share with you guys. It was just, you know, it's the usual overwhelming. Kind of like when I told you guys I came back from Birmingham, the International Festival of Quilts, and it was like, I know I didn't even get to see a fraction of what I know was there. It was kind of the same thing with Quiltcon. So Quiltcon, Raleigh. It's a wonderful space. The empanada guy was there. I had empanadas like 3 times. And you know, all the vendors were there. I got around to a few vendors. I didn't buy much, you guys. I was really good. You know, I stayed within my budget of nearly zero. I did buy the shirt. I haven't even unwrapped it. But it's a V-neck. And it's really cute this year. They, you know, the Ruby Star gals, they do a lot of, They do a lot of stuff for QuiltCon, and many of the QuiltCon tote bags have been Cotton and Steel or Ruby Star, those gals. So no, no change for Raleigh. They did, I think they designed this. It's, they've got the Ruby Star, their little Ruby Star thing, and they're just so delightful. So I was excited to get this tote. They often sell out of merch, but I think they did a good job this year. Oh, no worries, Druid. Oh, your cousin will be there. Oh, you guys, I'm assuming you're just, I guess, organizing, etc. So no worries, because Jill's here. Jill's probably going to be here for about 5 minutes and then just leave it running. Robin's also here. So, I appreciate you guys. You know that. So, and I did get the QuiltCon magazine. Now, this is not a catalog of the quilts. It's a magazine that they produce every year, and it's got some of the quilts in it. But it's kind of like the topics, like the big topics. It's got the judges. It talks about like all of the kind of gives a bios of all of the speakers and presenters and stuff. So good stuff. But I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. And then I have my little bag of swag. This is pretty much it. The money I spent was on, where is it? I bought 2 spools of thread from the Superior Threads booth. They were amazing. They hopefully will be maybe doing some sponsorship for AQSG, but regardless, they made good thread, and they had an amazing discount for vendors. So I got my white and neutral. So I just needed it, right? Like I needed thread. So, and then there's a shop in, I believe they're Michigan, called Duckadilly, and they are Liberty. They are purveyors of Liberty. So I bought some Liberty fabric, and most of it's for my mom actually, but I did get a few pieces for myself, sort of to add to my tiny little collection of Liberty things. This one, I have no idea if and when I'll make something with it, but it's Alice in Wonderland. So I have a little collection of various Alice in Wonderland fabrics. They're pretty much all new, recent things, but I love Alice in Wonderland. One of my very best friends my entire life. We're both huge Alice in Wonderland fans, and we will do Alice in Wonderland things together. So I thought that was kind of fun and special. And that's it. Everything else I have in this bag are the swag and advertisements of others, which are wonderful. I can't get back that together. So I'm going to take pictures of this stuff for Instagram. So I won't show you right now. There's a couple of things, like G's Bend. They have Friends of the Bend that you can join. And they do some really cool stuff. I was able to hear some of that. A little bit about what they're doing, because our dear friend Mary Fons gave a tour, and it was sold out, so I was not able to jump into the tour, but because I was volunteering for a vendor, I was able to slip in there before the show opened and eavesdrop. So I got a little bit of their information, so that was kind of fun. But so real quick, I'll show you 2 wonderful gifts I received. And then we'll just jump in and look at these quilts. And, I don't know how long I'm good for today, because what's going on inside the sinuses and whatnot. At this point, you guys, it's allergies. I'm like 100% sure it's allergies, and I need the big guns as far as allergy meds, but they knock me out. So, I don't want to knock myself out. So, first of all, I haven't taken a picture of yet. I want to put it on my Instagram, but our dear colleague, Laurel Horton, she is a folklorist. She was recently, just this past year, inducted into the Quilters Hall of Fame in Marion, Indiana. She's a big deal. And she came, she lives in South Carolina, so she drove up to volunteer with us, which was so fabulous. Um, to have her expertise and her legacy, because she's not a founding member, but she's been with AQSG a very long time. Her writing is magnificent, her research is wonderful, but she's also a maker. And so she had made these wonderful pot holders, and I think she made them for her Quilters Hall of Fame induction. And I think she kind of did like, she started making and she couldn't stop. So she had a lot left over. So she brought them to us. And what we did is, as people joined there on the spot at the booth, they got a piece of Laurel artwork. And so it's a pot holder. And what is in the center here is a silk screened deer. And she does printmaking. Her work is really interesting. I'm kind of bummed. It is signed, but I'm kind of bummed I missed the one that she had was like a different screen. She had solid ones, where the deer were solid and some were outlines. But there was one where she actually had the silk screen of her name here, and I missed that one. And I think that was like the good one. Anyway, congrats to the person that picked that one up. But I'm just so thrilled. It's a piece of Laurel Horton artwork to put in my collection. So she was so generous. Of course, she gave them to all of us first, and then we gave the rest away to the people that were joining, the new AKSG members. So, and then the other thing I received was from our dear friend Vanessa. She was also a volunteer, and we stayed. 6 of us stayed in an Airbnb, which you would think sounds stressful, but it is a wonderful group of women. And I don't love, I do not love to travel, and I don't love to stay with a lot of people. I would say the only thing is there's only 2 bathrooms, so we kind of had to, we had to split our bathroom time at night and in the morning, but otherwise, such a wonderful group of women to stay with. But our dear friend Vanessa made me a dumpster fire. It's a postcard. It's a fabric postcard with, it's a foundation piece to dumpster fire. So I love it. We've had some dumpster fires going on in our world for a number of years now. I believe we considered 2020 or 2021 were dumpster fire years. I'm pretty sure 2026 it's earned itself dumpster fire year, categorization. So anyway, I have my official dumpster fire. And she mentioned who the maker or the pattern maker was, and I apologize, I don't remember. I know they sell it on Etsy. The pattern is on Etsy. So it, I think probably if you search Etsy for dumpster fire foundation piecing, you'll find it. So, all right, let me catch up. What are you guys talking about? Druid. Oh, Druid's house. Let's see. Oh my gosh. The schools were closed because of illness. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Ah, okay, gotcha. Assessing stuff. Ah, gotcha, Druid. I hear ya. My mom was actually, with all this weather, dealing with her things at her own house, and I'm like, get that stuff like all fixed and wrapped up before I inherit this place, okay? That's terrible of me to say. Okay, so, oh no, wet carpet. Oh, say no more, girl. Say no more. I feel your pain. I've been there. I know what that's like. Okay, well, here's a little bit of a bright spot for you, for as long as you can be here. I'll read the placards to you from my phone so we can spend the most time. On the image, if I can, okay, here we go. So, let me get over here. I'll give you the good screen here. Okay. So, as I said, I picked the winners today just as a way to sort of slice and dice all of the pictures I took. There's a couple of exhibits. I do have the entire exhibit to show you. One was the G's Bend, and one was Hillary Goodwin's I guess it's a retrospective. They select um, a well-known modern quilt person, quilter, to do a retrospective of their work every year. And this year was Hillary Goodwin. You might follow her on Instagram. I think her Instagram is Entropy Always Wins, I think is her Instagram name. And she's an ER doctor. So I'm so in awe of her talent. And so we'll look at her quilts another day. Maybe we'll do that Monday because I'm kind of hankering to look at her quilts again and sort of look at the details I might have missed as I was running through. So let's get started. These are the winners in various categories. They have kind of like the best in show is sort of set aside, and that's what we'll look at first. And then within each of the categories, the top 3 quilts, for second and third place, are usually at the front of that kind of row of the section or the topic. So this one it won for, let's see, best machine quilting, and it is called Tinker Toys. It is by Susan Braverman, and her name sounds very familiar to me. I'm certain I've seen her work before. She is from San Antonio, Texas, and her Instagram handle is Wild Poppy Quilts, if you want to follow her. And what she says is, this quilt reimagines childhood construction sets, so Tinker Toys, through a modern quilting lens with traditional elements like drunkard's path, rail fence, and checkerboard blocks. I combined curves and linear shapes to evoke movement and connection, much like the toys themselves. Bold colors and graphic contrasts create a design that is both nostalgic and modern. So, I mean, you can see, the curved piecing here, of course, is the drunkard's path. She's got these strips here are the rail fence, and I'm guessing she's used some checkerboard techniques here. Like this is right in here. These are maybe using the checkerboard techniques. A very striking quilt. So yeah. And here's a close up. And for somebody who I don't love machine quilting in general because I'm just bad at it. There's a few of my quilts I've done on a frame, and I've done some fun doodle quilting. I kind of like, doodle quilting, that'll be my trademark. But this type of like very precise linear quilting, this is sort of matchstick quilting, but not quite, because she's got some different spacing and stuff in here, and it's not all consistent. It gives you the movement. But it is so precise. And this is what these award winners are. They are quilts that are visually striking, and maybe not necessarily this batch, because like this is the best in machine quilting, but they're visually striking, and they do a really good job with what the creative brief is. And they then have this like really impeccable craftsmanship. So that is what I know that the judges and the jury are looking for when they select the quilts. Okay. This next one, I don't know why this wants to keep turning over for some reason. This one I thought was so neat, and it's two-sided. So we'll see the other side of it in a second. This one was best hand quilting, and it's a smaller quilt, but the work in it nonetheless. For those of you that do hand work, you can recognize this quilt may have been, I don't know, it was maybe a yard square, give or take, but the fine work in that space is just amazing. I mean, you could see there's stippling and stripes, and then this, and she's used almost like sashiko effects in here. And then, with all of these abstract pieces, very striking quilt. And then this is the other side. Pretty wild, right? I just, as I walked around the back, I was like, oh, this is one of those two-sided ones. This is fabulous. So this one is called, so again, Best Hand Quilting. This is called Midnight and Noon. So I'm guessing this is the noon side, and this other side would have been the midnight side. So we'll go back here so you can look at the noon side. So this is by Lauren Clements Hart of Moore Park, California. She's a member of the Ventura Modern Quilt Guild, and her Instagram handle is Creative Life Sampler. And so she says, in deep darkness, we only see illuminated shapes, but inherently know there is more there. Full light uncovers what was always present, yet details still go unnoticed. Subtle minutiae that bring texture and interest to everyday life can often be unappreciated, overlooked, ignored. The quilting on this piece was informed by overlapping the front and back compositions. The contours influenced each other. New features emerged, inviting a closer look, inviting more observation of midnight and noon. So, yeah, so, in the way that the quilting itself is playing off of these two different compositions, is really cool. And you can see those things referenced. The other side is referenced on the other side. So very, very neat. Okay, so this is Best in Show. And it kind of surprised me that this one doesn't have like, I mean, I think it has an important theme, but it doesn't have like the, punch you with a wallop in the gut kind of theme this year. I'm blanking on what Phoenix's Best in Show was, but last time that Quiltcon was in Raleigh, the Best in Show was about school shootings. And, I know the Best in Show in the past has also been sort of statement quilts. This one has a little bit of a softer meaning. But first of all, let's see if I have, yeah, I do have a detail here. And so you can see these are actually denim jeans, pieces of denim. It is jeans, but it's pieces of denim that she's flipped them over. So the dark, outside of the jeans is the back of the quilt, the back of the top. And what we're actually looking at is the inside of the jeans. And I mean, we all own at least one pair of jeans, right? You understand what you're looking at here, the inside of that twill print. And so let's go back to the big picture. So this is, bear with me, let me get to it. Here we go. Best in Show. And the title is called Mom Jeans. Which I thought was cute. So Mom Jeans. And the quilter is Carolyn McKibben. She is from Summit, New Jersey. And she's a member of the North Jersey Modern Quilt Guild. And her handle is at Quilter Gardener. And this is what she says. Upcycled denim was the inspiration for this quilt. I cut up 9 old pairs of jeans I wore in early motherhood, ones that were sitting in a box taking up space, waiting to be donated. Being aware that much of the clothing we donate ends up in landfills and waterways of third world countries, I opted to use this fabric to make a quilt that can provide warmth, comfort, and artistic expression. So it's sort of it's still it's an important message about, conservation and recycling and upcycling. But still, it's a little bit of a softer message. And I think, Jill and I talked to one of the judges, and, she joked and said, it's really hard being a judge. I hope y'all like our decisions. And I sense that there was I would have to say, if somebody asked me, what was the theme of QuiltCon this year? There was a lot of things I saw kind of like trending, but I would say, and I say this tongue in cheek, but I also say it kind of seriously. Trauma and rage were trending during the quilts. I could tell you that there was a lot of very beautiful, abstract, pieces, but there were also some very pointed statement pieces as well. And I kind of wonder if the judges made a decision for the Best in Show quilt to be a little bit more of a softer statement, about the quilt itself, because there was so much, and I'm not complaining, because you guys know quilts are documents. They say something, and right now, not just here in the United States, all over the world, we're dealing with some stuff. And, people are angry, scared, disappointed, frustrated, etc. And so, um, as artists, we tend to, that tends to come out in our work. So I think I'm kind of wondering if these Best in Show, or, Best in Show, and then these Best in categories were kind of about, sort of uplifting the soft aspects, so we can kind of spend some time there, because we've got a lot of other, those themes of trauma and rage to explore. So, and oof, I won't talk really about judging much more, but from the perspective of, I always have some things to say about judging and jurying, particularly for Modern Quilt Guild. I'm not going to go there today. But I will say, of the judges and the jurors, they have such a difficult job. I do not envy them. I would not want their job, because, it's just, how do you look at hundreds of quilts and pick, just this specific amount of them, and then go on to look at, a separate group of people looks at them and then picks the ones that are the best. I mean, that's like a Sophie's Choice, y'all. Some of these quilts are so amazing. I'm certain the judges wanted to send out, ribbons to everybody. So I know I couldn't do their job. Okay. This one's fun. How graphic and exciting is this? I really think that from, this visual perspective, there was a lot of quilts like this, that are these just really amazing graphic, modern art. I don't know how else to say it. This is modern art. If we could take out the people in the back that give us the clue we're looking at a quilt show, if we could just, put images of some of these quilts up without, the detail that you could see its fabric, I think plenty of people would assume that this is modern art, that this is, they would be surprised to learn that this is made out of fabric. And so, to me, and this is just my opinion, this is just my artistic eye, those are the quilts that just grab me and suck me in. Certainly ones that have words and like a very clear intention of what they're expressing. Those two are they pull you in. There's so much here, Quiltcon, that pulls you in. But definitely these are the ones. And of course, pink. I mean, come on. You guys know I can't walk by something that's that hot pink and not stop and look. But this one is called Racing Stripes. It received the Modern Quilt Guild Award of Excellence. And I can't remember what the specifics of that award are. Let's see. Yeah, they don't say. I know it's listed somewhere what some of these awards are, like when it's not obvious. But so I guess the Modern Quilt Guild Excellence Award, yeah, I don't know how that is different than like Best in Show or the other categories. But in any event, this Racing Stripes was made by Kelly Spell. She is from Hickson, Tennessee. Her Instagram handle is Kelly Spell. And this is what she says. She's an individual member too. She's not a member of a guild. My goal for this quilt was to create the illusion of motion, which I believe she did, using hand-dyed color-to-color gradations. To achieve that effect, I used liquid Procyon MX dyes, which they're dyes I'm familiar with, in 3 hues, hot pink and wasabi to match the 2 rings, and forest green to match the background fabric. The gradations fade across the stripes as the rings race toward each other. So if I understand what she's saying, she dyed this fabric. And honestly, this background fabric, even in person, read to me as like black. But I think it is a deep, deep, deep forest green. But it's almost black. It's so dark. And then of course you've got this beautiful, golden yellow, and then this pink that reads as like a neon pink. It's so pretty. And then she's talking about these gradations she made for these stripes. So, I mean, I guess I see excellence in this is that, so not only is the design itself very fetching, it's very, it draws you in. It's definitely got the movement she intended. It appears to have incredible craftsmanship, and also she hand dyed fabric. Like she's like one more step into, you know, this craftsmanship of this, that she actually dyed the fabric to achieve this look, that I think is just so amazing. So racing stripes. Okay, the next one is this. And this one is called Parallax, and it won Best Original Modern Design. And again, like, I don't, they have these categories, but it's like, how do you decide? Like, that last one, Racing Stripes, to me, that could have been Best Modern Design. Like, I don't know, how they award the different categories. How do they decide? It's like, it's so hard. So Best Original Modern Design, the title is Parallax. It is by Danielle Stanfill, who is from Pahoa, Hawaii. And she's also an individual member. She's not a member of a guild. And her handle is @thequiltedhand. And she says, this collaborative piece is an invitation to explore the convergence of two aesthetic lenses, one drawn to the precision of geometry and the rhythm of pattern, the other inspired by nature's fluid forms and textures. Made in collaboration with Rachel Orr, that's O-R-R, an award-winning artist. Rachel hand-painted the fabric with screen printing ink, and Danielle pieced and hand-quilted it. Rachel's work can be found on Instagram @RachelOrArt, so O-R-R. So, yeah, this one, again, modern art. Like, I've certainly seen modern art. This could stand right beside various pieces of modern art at many a museum. And I got some of the up close here. You could see the stitching, and I think this is hand stitching, by the way. So really amazing piece. Okay, I don't know why these want to. So I think this one is an Emerging Artist Award. Yeah, so this is the Modern Quilt Guild Breakthrough Award. It is called, so the full title is Chingona, noun, comma, badass woman. So Chingona is the badass woman is kind of the translation. So this is by Stacy Pyron, Pyron. She is from Devine, Texas. That's Devine, Texas. She's a member of the San Antonio Modern Quilt Guild, and her what I assume is Instagram. Her handle, I keep saying Instagram. It's my assumption it's Instagram, but her handle is @the_stitched_up_roadrunner. So the stitched up roadrunner with underscores between each word. And as she says, as a fan of etymology, Chingona is a love letter to the reclamation of derogatory phrases aimed toward my fellow Latinas. Originally meaning a vulgar or overbearing woman, Latinas have redefined Chingona as a badass, strong, independent, successful woman. Inspired by the graffiti that populates the street art of San Antonio, this quilt also features other words and phrases intended to degrade Latinas, but are now often said with love and respect. Viva las Chingonas. So you see puta, chola, these are words that, it's many marginalized groups have reclaimed, have reclaimed their words. And so I see that that is kind of a love letter to that concept here for Latinas. Um, there is another quilt that's kind of in this same vein. It is not in this batch, but we will see it another day. Um, and so, I mean, these are those like, the power of women. We're taking back, we're not going to be marginalized. That's what this says to me, and I really enjoyed that. I think her execution was wonderful. This got a lot of people. I had to wait for the people to move to be able to take a picture of this, because they would not get out of the way. But you can see and make sure my quick picture isn't covering that up with his lips. So, but very, very cool and very, very well executed. Okay, so now these were like kind of these best in show, these show wide categories. Next, we're gonna go into the individual categories, and as I said, your cake didn't get around as much as she wanted to. I got a lot of the stuff that was sort of on the main aisle. Unfortunately, like, it's one of those things, like, sometimes it seems like there's all the time in the world and I can get around and get everything I want. Quiltcon, I think I always struggle. So, but I got a lot of the negative space quilts because, again, those are the ones that are this concept of like really grabbing you and dragging you in as a modern art piece. That often they are hard to differentiate from paintings if they are in a different context. So that's again, this is my language. This is my headspace, but this is the way I look at these quilts. And so I really love the negative space ones. So negative space, this category was sponsored by Ollie Fabrics, it was a brand I wasn't familiar with. And I'm sure they had a booth. I just didn't make it. But heads up, cool sounding fabric. And what this category is, these are quilt designs incorporate a creative use of negative space integrated into the composition of the quilt. So the negative space often creates like secondary patterns, etc. So the negative space is important here. And I have a close-up of this one. Okay, so this piece is called Frost Filigree. And this one won first place in use of negative space. It is by Yvonne Fuchs, who is from Tehachapi, California. She's an individual member of the Modern Quilting Guild. And hey, Bird, I saw you sneak in. And you probably know her. She's known as Quilting Jet Girl. I've actually volunteered with her, so I've kind of talked at length with her. She is a rocket scientist. And that's some of the things I really love about the Modern Quilt Guild is the women and I think Yvonne was I don't think she's a founding member, but she's an early member of the Modern Quilt Guild. And so many of these women are in just very far-flung careers that are not, the kind of creativity that we would call quilt making. Certainly everybody, no matter what their topic is, has some kind of creativity in their work, you would hope. But the quilting, I think, became an escape for her from like literal rocket science. So she does a lot of very cool stuff with gradations and transparency, a look of transparency with solids. So you're probably very familiar with her if you've spent any time in the modern quilt space. So this was lovely. I mean, it's a brilliant use of the negative space. So what she has to say about this, inspired by the delicate and intricate shapes on a frosty car windshield, Frost Filigree was designed to create visual interest by juxtaposing, that's my favorite word, juxtaposing curved piecing with varied negative space shapes. I have never made a red and white quilt before, and I enjoyed curating a subtle gradient for the quilt top and continuing the color story through the binding. My goal for the quilting was to continue the conversation between the piecing and negative space. And so, yeah. Okay, this might have been my favorite quilt of all of them. This was the winner in the category of piecing. And in piecing, quilts must be machine pieced. There's a handwork category, there's a separate one. So this must be machine pieced and reflect a strong or innovative use of piecing. So look at this. Now let me just go to the main picture. This piece, not only is it visually striking, but I will be honest, I spent as much time as I could looking at it. Actually stood beside it with Mary Fonz's mother of Fonz and Porter, for a hot minute. And we were looking at all of these individual little pieces. And you can see, I think a lot of these things are, they're probably foundation pieced. The circles are set in, so I don't know. But how they managed, the artist managed to then set all of these things into this loop. We were looking and kind of like tracing edges, in the air, and like I did not come up with any like really strong idea of what went into making this quilt. I suspect, and I have, I'll be honest, I haven't even read the piece about the placard about it, so they might tell us in the placard, but I suspect that they probably used some type of digital layout or something to be able to execute this. But this to me is just, I love it. I love it. I love it. That's all I got to say. It looks like, it reminds me of like a big bowl of cereal. It reminds me of like kind of, the 80s and 90s where you have all of these, that Memphis design style. I've actually made an ode to Memphis quilt. And just, and then the execution of it is just so fabulous. So this piece, again, it won first place in piecing. And the piece is called Elemental, is the name of the quilt. It is made by Patty Kopak Buckland of Tulsa, Oklahoma. She's a member of the Tulsa Modern Quilt Guild. And her handle is Patty Kopak. And she spells her name PattiCoppok. And then what she says is, during times of stress, I construct elements for future quilts. Creative ideas begin to swirl in my head till I am happy with the direction. It took 7 months to make this quilt, working in small increments of time. I bought a bolt of background fabric in order to have enough, but barely made it. Woo! I sometimes joked that the name of the quilt was going to be Elemental, with an emphasis on mental. So yeah, it again seems to me she's definitely doing foundation piecing, because I can see how that ends up taking up a lot of that dark background. It's kind of a grayish, like a charcoal. The background was a charcoal color. But yeah, it was so fun to look at, and just like it's whimsical. It's visually striking. To me, this one, I voted best in show for this one, but a different quilt one for well, it's viewer's choice, the best in show viewer's choice, a different quilt one, but I did choose this one. And so yeah, again, just take a look at this. You can see the quilting lines, or the quilting is all like this I think it's a variegated thread, and it's fairly big quilt. Like it's the quilting lines are spaced apart a fair amount. you know, so as to keep this thing from probably getting like really dense and heavy. I think it was just the right amount in my opinion, but you can see all of this, the seam lines here. You can see how these pieces were constructed. But again, like, I would love to talk to her sometime. Like, how'd you get them all to come together, Okay, this is the next one. And this was third place in piecing. I may or may not have gotten second place. I don't remember. We'll find out. So second place in piecing. This one is called Sonar by Janice Reamer. And she is from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. She's an individual member of the Modern Quilt Guild. And her handle is at Prairie and Ocean. And this is what she says. I was tired of being intimidated by sewing curves, and so I set out to not just get comfortable with sewing curves, but to actually enjoy the process. Mission mostly accomplished. I mean, whether she enjoys piecing curves now or not, she did a wonderful job. Each of these is the block, and then it's how she put them together that made this overall pattern, and this, like, I guess, secondary patterns. I love it. It's just another one that it's like, this yanked me right in and said, modern art doesn't matter that it's made out of fabric. It's modern art. It can hang right next to all the modern art dudes. Maybe you've looked at Jasper Johns. Think about Jasper Johns bullseyes. You got like that element in here. Definitely so many mid-century and later 20th century artists that painted things similar to this. So these quilters are right there with the really juicy stuff, in my opinion. And here's a close-up. Very cool. Okay, this one is another fun. This might be the second place. No. So you're definitely going to see some randomness. This one was third place for modern traditionalism. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think I got the modern traditionalism like placard explaining what modern traditionalism is, but the gist of it is, it's about taking, traditional block patterns and doing modern stuff with them. I think there's a lot of quilts that could technically be in this category, but they go into other categories. So, anyway, this one is called Block Play. And again, it won third place in modern traditionalism. And it is by, oh gosh, I got a really blurry version of this one. I kept recalibrating my phone to get the good pictures of the quilts, and then it didn't want to take pictures of the white placards for some reason. I mean, God forbid, we had wonderful lighting in there. My phone just wanted to be like, I don't know what to do. So, Block Play by Jennifer Candon, Candon, Harvard, Massachusetts. And here was an interesting thing. A lot of quilters from Massachusetts. There was a lot of placards when I took the picture, or I, leaned in to read a little bit about it, or, look at the name of the person that made it. They're from Massachusetts. A lot of Massachusetts. She's an individual member of the MQG. And her handle is at Jennifer Candon. Let's see if I can read this blurry. She says, why does growing up mean losing the ability to play? That a free, happy part of life ends. I'm a grown-up, and I still play on the floor with blocks. I even make my own blocks now. I say and model for my kids. Imagine the individual and social impact if we encouraged play for all ages. If the childlike joy of experimentation and creation were normalized as adult activity. I love that sentiment. I mean, my gosh, yes. And then, this is the quilt. Lots of denim this year. There's a lot of denim at Modern Quilt Guild. I feel like every year, um, there's a lot more upcycling going on. But I mean, really from the very beginning, I think a lot of quilters, modern quilters, do upcycling, and use jeans or some form of denim for their solids sometimes. And so this Jennifer did, I think, a fabulous job of that. You can really see, what's a blue jean and what's a solid here. But I really liked how she played with this. I mean, this is a take on, obviously a star, but very abstracted almost. And then she's got this low volume background that, in some cases it's sort of echoing and mirroring these star shapes. And then sometimes it's kind of playing against the star, like, we've got some of these other sort of pieces in here. So it's very improv-y to me. But yeah, I liked this one. I thought this was pretty neat. All right. And this one, for some reason, wants to flip itself over too. Okay. This is another one of those where I saw it from far away and I booked it over there to be like, oh, look at this. That's wild. So this one is called Inside Out. And this one is in the improvisation category. And guess what? This one was a judge's choice. And this one is also Jennifer Candon. So same person from the quilt before. And she says, action and inaction, spoken and implied, mirrored and shadowed, exhibited and contained, given and held, pursued and wondered, explicit and imagined, action and inaction. Sometimes I think artist statements are, they're a little bit opaque sometimes. What I love that she did here is this mirroring in the center of these shapes, right? Like, these improvisational curves. Improvisational curves have been trending for a while. Sherry Lynn Miller is a pretty prominent modern quilter. She's, I think she teaches. She's taught, I think, every year at every Quiltcon I've been to. I'm not sure if she taught at this one or not, but she teaches an improvisational curves class. And I saw a number of quilts that, in fact, I saw one where I was kind of like, when I saw it, I was like, is that a Sherilyn Miller quilt? Because it looks exactly like her work. And then I saw the actual maker. Somebody was taking a picture of the maker beside it, and I was like, oh. And I heard her say she took a class from Sherilyn Miller. So, in any event, I suspect it's probably the same type of techniques that Sherilyn Miller teaches. But this one just really is very striking. And it's one of these ones where I'm like, what does it look like if you hang it up the other way? Maybe that's why it wants to flip itself. Because it's like, yeah, it was hung. I meant to be hung this way, but look at me this way. Right? Like it kind of takes on a different look to it. When it's an arch versus a U. And I know I have a close-up. You can see the matchstick quilting. But when you doing these kind of improvisational pieces, I mean, you have to steam and press the crap out of them. And sometimes they still don't lie flat. So I think, some of these quilters that, again, it's about the execution. They did such a fantastic job. Alrighty. This is another one that for some reason it wants to flip itself. Okay. This is a small quilt. I think this is probably handwork. So let me... No, it's a small quilt. So I do believe it is still handwork, but this shows up in the small quilt exhibit. Of course, small quilts, special place in my heart because I tend to work small. I think this one was probably, I would say it's maybe 15 inches square, maybe 12 inches square. Very small. So this is called Shake It Up by Tanya Tanti, Tanti. She is from Altona Meadows, Victoria, Australia, and she's a member of the Melbourne Modern Quilt Guild. Her handle is at Tanya, Tania underscore Tanti, Tanti underscore artist. So Tanya Tanti artist with underscores in between. What does Burner say? Makes you think of the leftover pieces after you've cut out clothing. Yep, for sure. So what she says is a 9 square block with some squiggles and wiggles, shaking its way together, leaning into the curves and jumping over a few stitches. Let's see, do I have? Yeah, I have a. I had to get my eyeballs close to it because of this handwork in here, and I just love how she took these long stitches in these little fingers that are created with the quilting, and this is machine quilting, but then she's come in and done this handwork. And I love that so much. And you can see where the blocks come together. You know, she's done this after the blocks were sewn together. Which is very striking. Really cool. And I love how they have this like sort of, I don't know, they remind me of like in science, like anything microscopic little like fingers or lashes are called cilia, you know, I think cells and amoebas, and I mean even parts of your body have these little fingers. So I thought this was really, that's what that reminded me of. Okay, this one. Now, when I was at Quiltcon Pasadena, which I think was 2016, if I remember correctly, so 10 years ago, and I did white glove for a particular exhibit room in Pasadena. The Pasadena Convention Center's, I mean, I guess it's smaller than Raleigh, and they needed more space for shows, exhibits. So it was kind of like this, like you walked kind of down this pathway to another building. So I was in this other building like the whole time. So because I was white gloving, you know, what that means, if you're not aware, if you've never been to a big quilt show, they typically have volunteers wearing white cotton gloves, and they're there to, you know, shake their finger at the people that look like they're going to touch a quilt. But if somebody wants, you know, to see the back of a quilt or, you know, pull the quilt, you know, into the light, etc., the white glove person will do that. So long story short, I'm fairly certain that in that exhibit back in 2016, a very similar quilt by, I'm pretty sure this same artist was there. If it wasn't, so this artist is a man, and I'll tell you about him in a minute. But that quilt was also by a man. And it was this idea of quilting with very sort of gossamer, like very fine lawn, you know, almost transparent type of fabric with these like neon threads. But it's all white, right? And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, I've seen this before, but it's not the exact same one. So I'm going to have to go back and dig through my pictures from 2016, just to see, is it the same man? Is it the same quilter? But anyway, this is a log cabin quilt. And this is the close-up of it. And you can see, I'm going to zip in here really close, that it is stitched with, and my camera's not doing it justice. It is a much brighter thread than it appears here, but the log cabins themselves, I think, were constructed with this bright hot pink thread as the construction thread. And then the quilting itself is done with these neon threads. And to me, like, this looks like it's sort of either a yellow or green here in the center. You've kind of got a peachy, orangey. You know, I actually have a couple of sets of neon quilting threads. And I think they tend to come in this it's this range of neon colors that include like a yellow, a green, and kind of an orangey or a pink, a purple. Like they tend to sell these in like all kinds of, I bought it as embroidery for us. I bought them as quilt thread. So it's like companies will package together these neon threads. And so I feel like he used a palette like that, like it maybe came together. But as soon as you back away from this quilt, you start to lose the fact that it is a very intricate log cabin, because you're like, because it's white on white, Yeah, word bird, the threads, the construction stitching itself. So just making the log cabins, that was done, instead of like a white thread, which, we might ordinarily do, or a thread that blends. He used a neon thread for the construction itself. And then the quilting was also these neon threads. But it's so subtle that it's challenging to see it until you're up close. That's interesting to me. So let me read this, read his piece about it. So it's called White on White Log Cabins, and it's by an artist named Robert Boscher, Bosscher. He's from Wyoming, Michigan, and he's an individual member. His handle is RJ Boscher, and again, so that's RJ Bosscher, if you want to look for him. And what he says: this quilt continues a series of quilts exploring the unexpected, a quilt that seems to glow through the use of fluorescent piecing thread. Using small piecing, the colors in the seams become more evident and more pronounced, creating a much more evident glow while still offering the viewer questions of construction and process. Additionally, my hope is that viewers are drawn into the glow and feel the playful joy in the unexpected. So, yeah, and again, if it's the same guy, and I'm like 95% sure it is, because 10 years ago, was there some other guy making quilts like this? I'm hoping it's the same man and not somebody, no, it's not some guy knocking him off. But I kept coming back to it because the other one was white and pink, and I don't think it was a log cabin. It was another type of piecing, but I kept circling back to it, when I didn't have some white glove volunteering to do. I kept circling back and just looking at it. And so that's why immediately when I saw it, I was like, oh, I think that's the same guy. So I need to go back through my pictures and my notes and find him. This is one of my favorites as well. And I think probably mostly because of, like, I recognize the shapes immediately, and I think most of us would. You're recognizing it as a doily, and it's these pineapple shapes that were so prominent in doily crochet, but done on this big scale, and it was just, gasp. It was so amazing. And I have a detailed picture too, but I'll just zoom in here. You can see all of these pieces, what would be the negative space. They're appliqued. And so, but on this big scale. And it's just so visually striking, but also like, exactly what it is when you see it. So this was another one of my favorites. And so, it's called On the Back of Her Chair. So you can imagine those doilies, over the head of a high back chair, or just over the back of a chair, anti-Macassar style. And you can just see what she did here. It's just really lovely. So like I said, this one's called On the Back of Her Chair. It is the third place winner for use of negative space. And it is by Sarah Brown of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And she's an individual member of the MQG. And her handle is Sarah, so Sara, Sarah B for Brown Quilts. So Sarah B Quilts. And this is what she says. And I think I did read this one before. Often I don't read the placards until I read them to you, but this one I did read. A memory once faded, made vivid by grief. The comfort of her space, tracing my fingers around the doily resting on the back of her chair. This quilt is 336 hand-appliqued pieces. I wanted the doily to morph out of the void of the background, from nothing into something beautiful and delicate. I turned my seam allowances under using starch and cardstock templates prior to hand sewing. So it's a little clue into her process. I kind of wondered, you know, I mean, if I was going to make this, I would blow it up and probably create templates too, based on, from the computer. So I'm wondering if that's what she did. Like she, picked up these shapes that, she maybe traced a large doily and picked them up and put them to print onto cardstock. That's how I do it. So I don't know if that's exactly what she means she did, but I appreciated that look into her process. And so, I mean, just with that little bit, and like I said, sometimes explanations, the artist's words can be kind of opaque, depending on what the subject matter is. But you can see this is a person. Maybe it was her grandmother. Maybe it was her mother. Maybe it was a, beloved aunt or great aunt. Not exactly sure who her is in the back of her, on the back of her chair. But you know that feeling. You know that, like, it was this older woman who was important to her, and she lost her. She feels that sense of grief, and making this kind of brought it all back. Yeah, like I really responded to this one. So there's again. Okay. Another sneaky one that wants to flip upside down. So this one is called, so this one is this is the second place winner for use of negative space. So yes, I did get it. I just got it out of order. A lot of times, like, I think I mentioned, there's always people like just crowded around, and not to digress, but here's the thing. I understand wanting to spend time in front of the quilt because, no matter how good the pictures are, and if you're not standing in front of it, you can't, like, the picture is just different from pressing your nose, right up to it and looking and seeing every stitch and every, curve and everything. So I understand wanting to spend time in front of the quilt itself, but it makes me crazy when people will stand there reading the placards forever, and they're slow readers. And it's like, maybe you could snap a picture of it and step aside and read from your phone. Because I'm in a hurry. I'm trying to see as much as I can. And my method is to look as much as I can at the quilt itself and read about it later. So just a little public service announcement to quilt show attendees. If at all possible, you can just take pictures of the placards and read later. It would be really, really appreciated. Just me. So this was, again, number 2, second place for use of negative space. And this is called Circling the Squares. A lot of movement in this. I really love it. So this is by, her name is, I'm assuming it's a her, J-O, Walschlager. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jill, I'm not complaining about people being slow readers. I'm complaining about people who are slow readers standing there and like blocking the info when there's a good 25,000 people who reached the doors of this show and want to also see what you're seeing, right? People do this in museums and it makes me nuts. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, so Joe Wolschlager, and that is spelled Wolschlager. So Joe Wolschlager. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. From Portland, Oregon, and a member of the Portland Modern Quilt Guild. And again, I'm assuming this is a she. Handle is Joe Wo Quilts. So JOWO Quilts. No underscores. And the statement here: is using negative space and value, the circles come together to outline 9 squares, which recede or push forward depending on how you look at the quilt. The squares and circles are having a lively conversation. I agree. This quilt is composed of a 7x7 grid using one simple block, a square with 1, 2, 3, or 4 quarter circles. The density of the quilting varies to emphasize the 9 squares and the grid. So you see what she means. You know, you're looking at every block, you've got a certain number of these quarter circles, and they all come together. And you know, the density of the quilting itself, even though, you know, some of like this is all the same brown, but it's the density of the quilting makes it look a little different in each of its quadrants. This is a darker brown, obviously. But I really love it when quilters will take and do these kind of transparency looking things. And like I said earlier, Yvonne Fuchs, Quilting Jet Girl, I think is her handle. She teaches this concept of transparency and using solid colors to, you know, mimic a transparency look. I have never actually tried the technique, but I'm so amazed and just like, you know, gobsmacked by it when I see it. I'm always like, oh wow, you know, so neat looking. Okay. All right, come on now. Why are we flipping over? Okay. This one, I knew right away whose it was when I saw it. Because sometimes when you get famous enough and people recognize your work because you have a specific look about your work, you know, this is where well-known quilters who have a distinct work, they've I mean, this is a quality of a true artist, actually, when you have a style. And I just laugh when the jurors and the judges, or so the judges know, I think. No, actually, when no. I think judging and jurying, both are blind. They don't have the names. They just have the quilts, and they're making decisions just based on the quilts. But what I can tell you is, if you're jurying and judging and you don't know who made this quilt, you probably haven't been paying attention, because I knew right away who made this quilt. And that there were a number of quilts in the show, but this one was an award winner, so it really stuck out to me. And I'm not complaining. No sour grapes here. This quilter is very talented. She does handwork. But like I knew right away from, I mean, a very, very far distance, I knew exactly whose quilt this was. So, you know, I go back to the fact that, and I said I was not going to get on my soapbox about this, but I have to, just a teeny bit. When pretty well-known artists who have very specific style and multiples of their quilts are chosen, like I know one year, and I won't mention who the quilter was, but she has a very distinct style, and like 4 or 5 of her quilts were in the exhibit overall in different categories, and at least I think one of them was a winner. And I would never begrudge people, you know, showing their work and entering their work and being awarded for their work, because it's good. I'm not sitting here saying it's bad, but I'm also like, when so many of these spots are filled up with people that you absolutely recognize their work, you know who you have jurred into this show. That's spots that are not available for, like, you know, emerging artists, you know, is kind of the way I feel. So, you know, my opinion on this, and it's not been a popular one, although I do know a number of kind of outspoken, I think Molly Sparkles is one person that shares my opinion. He's down in Australia. But I think that there should be a limit. If, you know, you can perhaps submit as many of your quilts as you would like to fit in the categories. However, I think there should be a limit to how many of your quilts can be in the show. And it's just my opinion. You know, this is such a popular thing now. You know, Modern Quilt Guild just grows and grows and grows and grows by leaps and bounds every year. You know, somebody had a question for me, and I said, I've seen this research before, let me find it. And there was, I found a couple of blogs that had done, the numbers over the years. And I want to say, like, when they're first getting started, early quilt cons were like 4,000 people. That's a lot of people, but, over a 4-day span, 4,000 is, it's not what it is today. I don't know what the final numbers were. I heard somebody throw a number out that, is entirely possible, but I'm not sure if it was accurate or not. I don't know if it was like a number that they were projecting or if it was a number that actually happened. But I do know last time I was at Raleigh, so this was year before last, 2024, the door numbers. So this is people walking through the doors of the convention center to attend. And I think that includes pre-registered as well as just daily attendees who just drove in and came in and bought a ticket, was like 25,000. So, over a 4-day period of time, it's very different than it was, 10, 15 years ago. We've got leaps and bounds of people. So in any event, my point being, it just would be really nice if they had a mechanism to, to kind of cap the number of spots that very, very well-known quilters can inhabit and to make room for other people, for emerging artists. So, okay, without further ado, oh, let's see, what did Robin say? Fairly quick reader, except when you're in a noisy environment. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Have some awareness of the people around you, gosh darn it. So this was second place in handwork, and I did not get first or third. This one I snapped really quickly. I was actually waiting for Mary Fons to finish her tour of the G's Bend exhibit with, she every morning would do a tour. So I ran over and snapped this picture, and I never went back and got the other two. But this is called, so this is second place in handwork. This is called Bloom Becoming Intrepid Flourish. So there's commas between all those words. It is by Heidi Parks. She's a very well-known quilter and instructor and, content creator. She's, got lots of stuff online. I have taken a class from her a number of years ago. So she's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She's a member of the Chicago Modern Quilt Guild. And her handle is Heidi.Parks. And her last name is Parkes. So Heidi.Parks. And this is what she says. An antique handkerchief purchased in Tokyo began disintegrating with my first few stitches. I might have thrown it away, but instead I saw an opportunity to offer care, compassion, and support, just as I'd seen in the tree crutches ubiquitous throughout Japan. This was an opportunity to verb an experience in cloth and add material meaning with an artifact. The hours of sewing were easy to source. I stitched the handkerchief in place while on our bus tour, or on our tour bus, I'm sorry. So she must have visited, let's see, they don't put years on these, so this has to, but I would say this has to have been within the past couple years. This is very indicative of her current style. And yeah, much like that, the quilt element, the big circle with all the little like almost symbols done in foundation piecing. This is another one of those quilts where I just, I want to look at it. I like all the parts. It's got some interesting aspects to it. And I'm wondering if this is the handkerchief that she's referring to. I don't know. This does look like a piece of fabric that is very tattered, that she's heavily stitched. So, but yeah, I really, I enjoyed this. And I'm surprised she didn't win first. Of course, I don't remember what first was. Bad cake. Very bad cake. Okay. Let's see. Actually, I did get first and third. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had these in here. I did get first and third. So let us look at those. And then I'm probably going to end early, guys. It's maybe the fastest I've talked about 25 some quilts. So this one was third place in handwork. This one is called Summer Rain Stories. It is by Diane Paxton, who is from Chelsea, Massachusetts. Have I not named several people now just in this batch of quilts from Massachusetts? She's an individual Modern Quilt Guild member, and her handle is Diapax, so Dayapx. And her statement: through the use of iterative stitchery and repurposed fabrics, I explore layers and transparencies as a way to convey depth. My tactile process of making is both hidden and revealed as I explore friendship and the nuanced nature of storytelling. I'm drawn to the ways that intimacies unfold more readily in the outdoors with a shift in the wind, the ragged rhythm of the waves, a tender summer rain. So, and just reading her description, I mean, this evokes that for me, kind of like, sort of puddles and, gosh, like in the summer, especially like in a parking lot, it's kind of hot, and you've had a storm, and then the puddles kind of have that like sort of rainbow sheen over them, and you just have all this movement, and that kind of evokes this for me. It is very dense, and it's definitely got some techniques in here that I'm not sure if this is cording or if this is some way that she's like created some like pleats or tucks in the fabric. I'm not sure. But you can see she's got some like piecing back in here, and these pieces, she says repurposed fabric. So, I'm assuming, these might be scraps of like, my garment fabrics, I'm not sure. I mean, you could see some of the design in a few of these, but for the most part, it's kind of obliterated by her quilting, or, just, yeah. I really like this, and think about, contrasting some of these other quilts that were, like some of the negative space quilts that are very like one or two solid colors, and they're very stark compared to this. This got these very soft edges. Also very painterly. And, think about like, say, your like hard line, like acrylics, you get very bright, and hard lines when you paint with acrylics. Whereas this is a painting with watercolor to me. So like, yeah, it's to me, it's holding its own right there with museum modern art. All right. And then the final one here is, this is number 1 for handwork, right? Yeah. This one, and so knowing that this is handwork, you guys, like, what? The perfection in these stitches. Now she's using a heavier thread. And over here, I think it looks more to me like it's maybe a stem stitch, or it's a whipped running stitch. I don't think I have. Do I have a close-up? I don't have a close-up. But nonetheless, my gosh, you guys. I mean, I hand stitch a lot. I hand quilt a lot. I hand embroider a lot. And oh boy, can I get this kind of perfection? Yeah, maybe not. So yeah, there's so much texture going on in this. And this is a raw edge right here. This piece here is, I don't know if it's indigo or indigo dyed, or if it just happens to be like this dark, deep bluish, I don't know, but it's pretty darn striking in my opinion. All right, let's read what they say. So again, this is number 1 in handwork. It's a name you're going to recognize. So this is called Working Blues. The artist is Danielle Stanfill. Remember, she had the Parallax quilt. That was one of the Modern Quilt specific awards. Again, she's an individual member from Hawaii. And what she says here is, this quilt is made from denim and drop cloth. So I'm guessing this is the drop cloth, probably. And then this is the denim. And this looks like some heavily bleached denim, perhaps. Materials long associated with blue-collar labor and the endurance of daily work. By incorporating 2 hand quilting techniques, so sashiko-inspired stitching and couching. Okay, so these must be couched threads. So not a whipped embroidery, but a couched thread. It draws on traditions of repair and resilience. Oh, this happened here. My phone. Okay. It draws on traditions of repair and resilience. The quilt reflects both the physical demands and dignity of labor, transforming humble, utilitarian textiles into a space for reflection on the value of work. So that's pretty deep stuff. I think there's a lot of people kind of looking at the idea of working with our hands. Whether it's actually literally like needle and thread in your hand, or machine quilting, but your hands are involved. This isn't like just, put a quilt on a frame and walk away from it and let the machine do the work, but it's like guiding the machine to do the work. All of this kind of, these ideas, I think, are becoming more and more important. You guys have heard me say this a bunch of times. So there was an AI lecture that I did not get a chance to go to. Again, just there's not enough time to do all the things you want to do. But it was about, an artist that's, talking about, the use of AI. I go back to the fact that I think AI has no business doing our work for us. Like, don't ask it to create a quilt pattern for you. Don't ask it to create imagery for you, because it's just churning out and pooping out. It's like taking everything from the internet, putting it in a blender and barfing it back out to you. And, this is old news. This isn't anything new. But that's where I'm coming from. I don't know. The person that lectured on AI, I don't exactly know what their angle was. I heard great things about it. I can say that. But this idea that, with AI taking over things, and, not only AI taking over like white collar work, there's long been robotics potentially taking over blue collar work. And in some cases it's already happening, robots that can do, some of the like factory and warehouse type activities. Just technology in general has over decades transformed the way many of us shop, order things, etc. So all of that is kind of been part of the conversation for a long time. But, now that AI is supposedly taking away the work of white collar workers, I truly believe, if we survive ourselves, I personally feel we're more dangerous to ourselves than AI is to us. Famous last words, right? But if we could kind of get out of our own way, I think that our human value is, again, in the things we can make with our hands and with our minds and with our heart, because those are things that, and when I say with our minds, I'm really talking about creativity, because AI is brainy, it's smart, it can make these incredible cognitive leaps that are difficult for human beings to make. However, AI is not creative. AI doesn't have hands. And AI has not successfully made a quilt or a knitted or crocheted piece or a garment. Human beings have made these things, and human beings place these things out there in the world for others to enjoy. And AI is not capable of that. So I think that handwork is the future. And, like I said, when it comes to quilt making, the idea of handwork, made by hand, it still involves a sewing machine. I don't think that we would never necessarily take out sewing machines from the handwork, but true handwork, needle and thread, is really also trending in my opinion. So many people that came into the American Quilt Study Group booth, lots of people came in because they're like, I want to know what you are. Who are you guys? Like, I want to know. Other people just came simply because we strategically hung two very eye-catching quilts. One was actually mine. It was it's actually a coverlet, but it's applique. It's mid-century. It's very striking. And then our friend, other Stephanie, one of her quilts it was a grandmother's flower garden, but the colors were so just wonderful and just so striking. They were like a kind of a turquoisey sort of color, like a turquoisey blue and bright bubblegum pink. And then I think there was yellow in there. And then, of course, the white borders. So it really popped. And the fact we were right across the aisle from Moda, the fabric company Moda, and they had this whole handwork and hexagon make and take kind of project thing going on. It was like a little lounge where you could go, and I never went over to really like heavily investigate it because I knew I would want to go and sit down and stitch and forget about AQSG. But basically they had like lunch trays with all of these supplies, and they would sit down and they would work on stuff. So I think it was kind of like it must have been like a make and take, but it was more involved than what we traditionally see as make and takes from vendor booths, because people were over there for long periods of time. But in any event, it was like a really, really fortuitous like positioning, who we were across from, and the kind of people that were interested in the specifics of like hand sewing and what really struck their fancy. It was kind of serendipity, I think. But I had so many people that came in, and they would ask about, one or the other of the quilts on the corners. And when they were asking about my coverlet, I would get up and talk about it. And and you guys have seen it before. I've had it hung behind me. But it's all applique. They're applique blocks, and okay. They're applique blocks, and they're beautiful. They're flowers. I've got a couple blocks with birds in them. And so, when I would talk to people, they would either say, oh my gosh, all that applique, I can't even imagine. Or they would say, oh, I'm so inspired. I've just started handwork. I've just started learning how to hand stitch, or I want to learn how to hand stitch. And so, I look at that as like, maybe I'm just right place, right time with these specific people that have this in mind. But I really do feel like true, needle and thread handwork is going to be trending. And by no means is AI not influencing that, because I truly believe it is. So, I had a number of people just sort of ask, and people that are like industry people, all the way down to, walking with a lady out of the parking lot one morning heading in. People sort of asking the question, like, how many people are really part of the industry now? Like, what are the trends in this industry? And I know a lot of people started quilting or pursued quilting or sewing projects throughout the pandemic because, they're stuck and then they're looking for creative outlets. I know a lot of those people, have had to go back to work and, don't have the time really anymore to be as entrenched in making things as they maybe were during the pandemic. But I would like to think we've retained, as far as quilters, we've retained some people that got involved during the pandemic. I think the last big survey was a couple years ago, and it kind of indicated that, by virtue of the pandemic, we had this great big spike in, quilting and sewing, and that there might be kind of like a little slower downward trend, but kind of like, leveling off, plateauing. So yeah, I see that as absolutely true. One very fun thing that I think is really picked up steam is quilt clothing. And So we got a couple minutes. We'll look at this more later, but what did I do with the book? Oh, here it is. Okay, so the Quiltcon magazine, they have in here a whole section on the quilted runway. And I think this is specifically these designers. And there's a bunch of this, So Tights and Maywood Studio sponsor this, but they have, like literally the patterns. You can get these patterns, if you have the magazine. There's like a code in here to get the patterns, for these quilty outfits. And, you know, I've always been a huge fan of quilty outfits, you know, handmade outfits. You guys have seen me in some of my stuff. I was going to wear my sweatshirt that I zhuzhed up for Quiltcon based on my limited time available. And it was still just a little bit too warm today. But I still have my one little piece of Seminole piecing, so you could see what it looked like. You know, it was around the hood of the sweatshirt, and it was down the sleeves, like so. I got to wear mine on the last day we were there. It was the only day that I could wear more than just a t-shirt. It was hot down there in North Carolina, and especially hot inside the convention center because they were having heating and air conditioning issues, because I had forgotten they had a fire on the roof of the convention center. I don't know, 6 months back, maybe. It was a while ago, sometime last year. But did I have trouble coming back home? I came home in the blizzard. We weren't sure what was going to happen, and Jill ended up staying in North Carolina a few days because she knew she was heading back to like waist deep snow. I wasn't sure, and based on the times they were giving for when things were supposed to hit here in Maryland and in Virginia, I made the decision, because I was riding with somebody else, that I wanted to get her home. I took off early on Sunday, a couple hours before the show closed. It was really dead because people were, you know, scrambling around trying to get travel plans together. And I think probably Sunday is kind of slow anyway, because, you know, there's a lot of energy on Friday and Saturday. People are, you know, off work, or, you know, they took off work to go. And Sunday's just a little bit slower, and especially so because of the weather. So I took off early. Things were fine. We had rain through North Carolina and Virginia, but when I got up to Northern Virginia, by then it's dark and it's slushy. And I'm a Virginia native. You guys know that, but gosh darn it, Virginia, you really crapped the bed on this one. If they treated their roads, you could have fooled me. If they treated them, they certainly didn't treat them with what we treat with up here in Maryland. After some fearful driving through Virginia, through a big block of Virginia, which was probably only about an hour and a half of what would have been a normal drive, it ended up being like far more, because chugging along at like 40 miles an hour. But as soon as I hit the state line and got into Maryland, it got progressively better until, you know, at my house, I already had like maybe 3 or 4 inches of snow, but the roads were fine. And it's because we treat constantly when there's going to be weather. And they treat with beet sugar. I always joke that it's Old Bay. There might be a little Old Bay in there. I don't know. But Maryland treats, I know, with beet sugar in certain places. And Virginia must not. Whatever it is that Virginia does was not good the other day. So I'm sorry, Virginia. Your native daughter is giving you a boo. But yeah, so Jill and a couple of other people that were there stayed extra days in North Carolina, and then started the journey back once they knew what it was going to look like. And Jill actually just got home yesterday, so she was there for a full week. Some other members flew out early. So yeah, it was kind of a bummer on the end of a very fun weekend to have to deal with the snow, but I mean, this is what happens when you have an event in the winter. And I knew that they really struggle with places to have QuiltCon because it has grown so much. And, what are appropriate venues? You know, Vegas can handle anybody, but frankly, I don't want to go to Vegas for QuiltCon. So fingers crossed. I can't remember if they've ever had a Vegas look. I don't think they have. And I hope they don't plan to. Some of the worst illness, like travelers' illnesses I've ever had, came from when I visited Vegas. So, but they've bounced back and forth between the East Coast and the West Coast, and they're doing some back-to-back East Coast, which makes people mad because I think next year it's in Atlanta. But I think it's just because they're getting to this, yeah, or Bird Nerd says the same thing. No, you're not keen on Atlanta. But it's just one of those things, like we're not like, well, as I'll give you the example of Birmingham International Festival of Quilts. If you've been to that, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it's hard to wrap your head around it. It is a good 3 to 4 times as big as QuiltCon, and QuiltCon's big. But it is in the same place always, and it is an enormous series of these cavernous buildings in Birmingham, England. And they have other things there. But they don't have to hop around, and they fill the space quite well. So just, the volume of people, the number of vendors, the space to set up the shows, and then your foot traffic, because QuiltCon does really generate a lot of people that just come for a day, locals or people from, within a drivable distance that come for a day or two. So, with that in mind, they really struggle, I think, to find the right place to put people in, or to put themselves in. For instance, Nashville, I think Nashville was a really great space, but I don't think that they've been out. I think they've maybe sought Nashville again, and Nashville doesn't want QuiltCon because it's not quite the right thing they want in the space there. And the convention center is in Nashville. It's right in the middle, and then there's it's connected to the I guess it's a stadium, where their sports teams play. And I do know that it can handle way more people than, what was there for QuiltCon. And I think 2018 was when it was there. So it's kind of like, sometimes it's like they don't want the space. Sometimes the space doesn't want them. And so it's really tough. And again, the fact that it's wintertime, you are never going to see QuiltCon, at least on the East Coast, probably go north of North Carolina, because Virginia, even though doesn't get a whole lot of snow, does get, when there's a nor'easter, Virginia's often in there. Maryland, we're a smaller state. We just have, we have space issues. But all the going on up, New York, Boston, all of those places, you just cannot count on weather cooperating. So they would not seek those spaces. So it's always got to be, if it's on the East, it's got to be South. And when it's on the West Coast, I think it's finding the right dimensions, I guess. So anyway, I don't know what's coming after Atlanta. Maybe back to Phoenix, maybe Austin. I know Austin, I think, continues to have some decent space, but I don't know. Yeah. But what I was going to say, though, in conjunction with the pictures I was showing you about the quilty clothing, the quilted runway, they actually did this really cute thing, and I did not go over to it because I was like, I'm tired. My eyeballs cannot take it anymore at this moment. And our friend, the other Stephanie, she went over and looked, and she was like, oh, it was so cute. But what they basically did was they were like, all right, it's runway time. And I don't know if you had to reserve a spot first. I kind of think it was like anybody who wanted to could come up and stand in line and do the runway. So if you had a quilted garment, or if you had any kind of quilt, a quilty jacket, a patches on your clothes, whatever, any kind of quilty clothing, you could walk the runway. And you probably have seen this on Instagram. If you haven't, look for it on Instagram, the runway or the fashion show or whatever, Quiltcon, you'll find it. I caught 2 reels that had, I think, full videos, and they were so good. They were just fabulous. And, some of the people were a little bit shy, walking and like, showing off. And other people were like, I was born for this. Let me walk the runway. So it was so cool. Yeah. And so some of the other things that I will dedicate to showing you. Oh, good. Okay. On YouTube. Yeah. So look on YouTube as well. Yeah. And you guys, I know Druid gave me some crap at the top of the show about not posting. I'll be honest, there was so many content creators there. That's one thing I think I've seen even more so. Now, not to say that over the years, I've been the only one with my gimbal out, but there was a lot of people talking into their phones as they were taking video and pictures. And so I know they're content creators. And I kind of thought to myself, like, anything I'm going to post, you guys your feeds are full of it. Right. So I kind of, that was sort of the method to my madness. I kind of felt like, we could have this versus me taking the time, to post these things. So sorry, I pooped out. But so I have now shown you what I got of the winners. Like I also said, I got all of Hillary Goodwin's retrospective as well as the G's Ben quilts. And we will look at those probably next week. I think I'm going to put those on next week. And then there's kind of a smattering of other things. I got many of I think I got all of them, but there might be a few I missed, of the community quilts. And I think these are quilts that sometimes they get a little short shrift. Certain years, they have literally lined the walls of the main like spaces within the convention center. For whatever reason, there's really not a lot of wall space in Raleigh. Raleigh's like it's levels. You go down a lot of escalators and stuff. I just don't think they had access to be able to hang quilts sort of in like, wide common spaces. So the community quilts were actually upstairs beside the lecture halls. And if you weren't there to see a lecture and you didn't really pay really close attention to, say, your map, you may not have realized that there was this whole room of there were probably 50 quilts up there. I didn't count, but I felt like I kept taking pictures and kept taking pictures. And I'm like, I haven't taken pictures of that one or that one or that one or that one. So I spent a lot of time in that room. And what they are the quilts made by the guilds. It's sponsored by one of the fabric companies, and they get a choice of in the past, they've only gotten one color palette that they were allowed to use. This year they had a choice of 2 different ones. So it was really interesting. And I think because there's so many quilts, when we get to those, I think I'm going to split them by the color palettes instead of mixing them, because it was very interesting. I'll just leave it at that. But so these are the guilds. There's one guild picture I have. It's a friend who worked on the quilt, and so I have the guild picture with her. But at all of the other quilts, there's local guilds to me that I'm just not a member of, but I was so in love with what they did. And they're so fun to look at. So I definitely want to spend some time on those because, again, they were up there in that room. And I know there's some years they've put them in a weird spot. They don't get the spotlight. They're not eligible to be a attendee favorite. So, yeah, I just feel like they sometimes get tucked in a corner and don't get as much fanfare as, say, like the Best in Show, because the Best in Show is very prominent. So I do want to spend some time on those, and they're really fun. Some of them are very community oriented, like the Baltimore Modern Quilt Guild, Crabs and Old Bay and Natty Bow and all the stuff is on that quilt. Same with the DC Modern Quilt Guild. They did a very DC, Virginia, and Maryland sort of thing on theirs. They had some 3-dimensional elements. It was very cool. And then I noticed some of the like coastal guilds would do things that had to do with like the beach or, the ocean. And the Tennessee quilt, the Smoky Mountain Quilters, um, is my, I'm close to somebody that is a member, and their quilt had trees and, different sort of symbolic elements. But then there were some that were really just, they chose to put it together as a visual feast. Not so much about their community, but just about the visual elements of the quilt. So, you kind of have two different, for my opinion, two different ways that those quilters kind of tackled those quilts. So those will be fun to look at. Well, my time is done here. This weekend, day after tomorrow, Jill and I have Stitch and Glitch. We were a little iffy because we were not sure what was going to happen with the storm, but she got home. And we're both safe and sound and at our home computer, so we can do Stitch and Glitch as planned on Saturday. There will, of course, be gobs more Quiltcon discussion. I'm sure there are things I saw that Jill didn't, and vice versa, and we will be gabbing about all that. So I hope you can make it. It is 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday on YouTube. Look for Quilt Nerding if you've never joined us before. And yeah, I hope you can make it. And if you were at Quiltcon, fingers crossed, you found your way to us. If you're new here, you grabbed our cards. Yeah, I hope we get to continue talking to you, and you can meet all of our regular folks that come nerd out with us. So I will see you guys on Saturday there if you follow me and Jill. If not, I'll be back Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel, or same cake time, same cake channel. That's what I should say. So take care, you guys. If you're in the snow, be safe. If you have no snow, be grateful. And I will see you on Saturday. Mwah!